Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Slappin Kpop podcast. I am Kayla, and today I am joined with Sammi.
Hello.
And Dan.
Hello.
And the three of us resident Asian drama experts are here for the next week in Asian Drama November to talk about the Chinese movie / C-drama Our Shining Days / Our Shiny Days, which... Oh boy, was this experience.
I think we need to start with...
How?
Why?
Why?
How?
But why?
Like...
I just want to know why.
That's the first question of, why did you watch this random movie from, 3 years ago?
Yeah, so...
On a whim.
There is a really fun backstory to this. So... We were working on our All-Star K-pop groups part 2. We were just brainstorming
Coming
groups.
eventually.
Spoilers for my group for that, because it involves that. So I have essentially, for my fake group, it's a string orchestra with also Chinese traditional instruments, and that is one of my fake groups. And when I was making that, it reminded me of this, random clip from a Chinese movie I kept seeing, recommended to me on my Facebook that was, this orchestra battle of Chinese traditional music students versus, the Western, classical orchestra students. And they were just in a hallway, playing Flight of the Bumblebees, against each other, sort of. And I just remembered that, and so I went on YouTube. I searched Chinese movie orchestra battle, and I found it. And then apparently, after a little research, we found out that that movie, that scene is from, is called Our Shining Days.
Yes.
And then...
Because I had never seen the scene,
yeah.
But I had heard of that movie. And I knew that movie also had a drama.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, no, I know that show. That movie's on Netflix.
Yes. And so once we figured out it was on Netflix, me and Sammi decided we needed to watch it, right now. It was, a random Wednesday night. And we were just we're watching this movie right now. And it was an experience because...
A trip and a half.
It really did not go the direction either of us were expecting to go.
I didn't know there
was
a direction. My weird thing
is I also don't know what the direction I expected a movie that includes a hallway battle to Flight of the Bumblebees between traditional, Chinese folk music and classical, Western music to go.
All I know is whatever I was expecting was not what the movie was. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's very strange. So weird. And then we, after we watched it, we went to Lucas and Dan, and we're just you need to watch this movie, because it is a life experience. And then Lucas never watched the movie, but Dan did, so here we are.
I did. Mm-hmm. And from my point of view, I knew nothing. The only thing I knew is it involved music. I didn't know anything about this infamous hallway scene. I didn't know anything. I just knew, watch this, it will change your life in a way, or not. ? And that's what I went in, knowing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And it was quite a journey.
It was.
So I think we're going to go through this movie somewhat chronologically.
Yeah.
And then I can also...
be helpful.
Because I also decided that in the meantime, while we were waiting for Dan or Lucas to watch this movie, I would watch
something. It will take me at least a month.
Yep.
Exactly. So
we gave you a deadline.
I decided to watch. Mm-hmm. And the deadline was before I finished watching the drama, and I still finished watching the drama before you watched that movie.
Yep.
So I watched Our Shiny Days because I, as the resident drama watcher, I don't know, just thought that it would be in my best interest to have a comparison with the show. And no one else was going to watch it, so it was going to be me.
Yep.
So I watched the show, and that was also a trip and a half, I will say that. It's 24 episodes, and is essentially the same thing. But, I'll make comparisons as we go on.
So, the show opens up with, a Mean Girl-esque, hallway fight that's just happening.
Just picture when Regina starts throwing the pages of the burn book and, like, that fight that happens. That's how this show starts.
Mm-hmm.
Just with a fight of
You
that nature.
Fist fight.
Mean Girls. It's the only way you can compare it to.
I mean, it is exactly the correct comparison.
That's true.
And it's also essentially... So that happens because I think in general, like, there is a weird quote-unquote rivalry between... Because the school is sort of divided into, like, classical Western instruments and classical Chinese folk instruments. And, like, the thing is, the school is also then, after this fight, they put a metal gate dividing the two parts of the school, which is just
can't
why.
Get along, so
we're just gonna
block you
physically
off.
separate you
away. Yeah, we will separate you forcibly. The other thing is, like, they also, I guess it's for plot convenience.
It is definitely plot convenience. They don't.
It has to be. I was so confused, but that was the only way I knew who was who. This is such a short movie. You're like, I don't have enough time to know literally hundreds of kids in the school and what they, like, mean. So that was just to be like, all right, these are the quote-unquote good guys and bad guys. But it didn't turn out that way.
And there's, like, blatant discrimination of the classical, like, Chinese music like students from the Western
but also,
instrument
like, there
students.
is and yes, there is and there isn't. It's weird because it is only in very specific circumstances and just really random. For example, like,
their uniforms are way worse. Number one.
Well, here's the thing. The uniforms also are... Because if you watch enough Chinese dramas, especially high school dramas, the uniforms that they wear are very similar to a lot of uniforms that, like, you'll see in every Chinese high school drama. That's just the uniforms that they wear in those shows. Because that's, I think, just what... I can't speak to the realities of being a high school student in China. I've never been one. But, like, at least from shows, that is the impression I get, is that that's just the uniform they wear. And then the classical kids just wear more of a traditional, like...
They were, like, the preppy kid
We all
uniform.
went to private school.
Uniform. Yep.
Like, to say that, like, all three of us went to private school, that's sort of a similar uniform to what we wore.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I think it's just another way of just sort of making it seem like they're more Chinese in a way.
Yeah, I think it wants you to think the, like, Western music kids are, like, snooty and, like, preppy and just mean. And it's...
But the weird
they're really
thing is,
not,
I find
but, like...
all of them are equally preppy and snooty, though.
Because they all go to music school.
You go to music school.
They all play classical instruments of some kind. Like, as an outsider, like, they're all equally snooty.
There isn't, like, to the normal folk out there, they're just like, yeah, one of those band kids, alright, cool.
So our main girl is a classical Chinese musician, and in the middle of this fight, we have the, like, driving force of this movie, which is that she sees a boy playing the piano and is immediately falls head over heels in love with this guy that she does not know his name, has barely met him, has seen him one time, and that's it. Also,
not in
to
the
make
same
a comparison
classes,
with the show,
or even
nope.
like this. It's also like they're separated too, so it's like they don't even have anything that could possibly.
They have. No, here's the thing: they do have classes together. Like, you do see that the classical kids and the Western kids have classes together, but they can't practice together. Mm-hmm. They can't practice in the same places. But in general, like, she's never met this guy and immediately falls in love with him. Also, in the show, they wear the same uniforms. It makes far more sense in the show. In the show, they all wear the same uniforms. The TV show, they wear the same uniforms. The drama.
Which makes more sense because you have more time to actually build characters and a school rather than, like... everyone's in a school. These are the guys you gotta pay attention to. Here you go. So it makes sense. My thing with that is that I never understood, like, did she fall in love with just him because he's attractive? More likely. Did he fall in love with the fact, like, wow, he's just so talented at the instrument?
All of the
like,
above.
I think
he's a hot guy that can play the piano really well.
It must be. That's, like...
I think that's it.
Right. And the fact that all of a sudden it was just... From nothing to, this is my obsession, and it's going to be the driving force of my entire actions throughout the whole movie from here on out.
It is her driving force, as we'll get to. Like, everything she does to a point, to very far in this movie, is entirely because of him.
Yep.
And it's just, like, the movie goes a little overboard, but, like, literally there's, like, literal, like, sparks and hearts around her eyes as she looks at him for the first time. Literally. And I'm just like, you don't know him.
At this point in the movie, I was like, oh no, what have they made me watch?
Like, he is just playing the piano. He does not notice her at all. Because he is playing the piano.
Nope.
This is an entirely one-sided attraction.
It really is.
He's just doing his
thing.
So
from there, she essentially becomes his page turner.
She volunteers
for, like, one
to,
day.
yeah.
Yeah, she volunteers to be his page turner, and then at the end of that, confesses her love to him, and he's like...
No, who are you?
I don't know you.
Who are you?
And it's not hyperbolic. It's like the next scene of, like, I don't know you, and also, I'm not interested in a relationship.
Yeah.
Which... I entirely understand that a random stranger comes up to you and is like, I love you. Let's be together.
I was like, that's, like, creepy. That's just weird. Like, he's not in the wrong. Not in the wrong here.
This will begin a pattern of what we like to call piano boy did nothing wrong.
Yes.
Yeah, because he right off the bat says, I'm not interested. I want to study abroad. I'm going to focus on
Please
that.
don't distract me, yeah.
Please don't distract me, leave me alone. That's what he said. And then walks out, and we don't hear from him for a while. So at this point, you're just like, I should just let him be, because he's clearly not interested.
And also, and, like, this is not, like, him getting, like, he is blunt, but I don't think he's cruel. He's just selling, like, if some random stranger came up to you, like, he's not calling her a bad like, he doesn't insult her in any way. He is just being very blunt of, like, we also don't really have anything in common. Like, we play very different styles of music. Like,
that was, I was gonna say, that was another part of it, was, like, I don't know what instrument you even play, really. I play the piano.
And
she's just like, I play, I can't remember what it's called. So he's all like, I don't know what that is. I'm a piano player.
And here's the thing with that. Like, she gets insulted in the way that
takes,
he does
like,
not
personal
know what she
offense
plays,
to
also,
it, yeah.
But like,
it's the Yang Queen. That's what she plays.
Like, she also doesn't really know anything about the piano. Like, they at one point, especially in the show, they bring this up where it's like they give her like when he does this, gives her tells her about the piano, and she's just like, oh, I didn't know any of this, and he's just like, yeah, you didn't. And then he just is like, we don't have anything in common. Like, these are reasons why I don't think that this relationship would work. And she just takes almost personal offense to anything he says.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where I think that it's just very odd.
Yep.
Yeah, it was different.
Different. So, from there, she then proceeds to think that if she makes a band, or like a
ensemble,
classical music group ensemble,
then he'll remember her.
That will impress him?
Yep.
Then he'll remember the instrument she plays.
That's how we're gonna do this. So, no one in the department wants to help her at all.
No.
Like, in any capacity. They want nothing to do with it. Oh, I don't think we've mentioned him yet. She also has a friend.
Oh, the friend.
Oh, how did we forget?
Her
we
best
also has a friend.
Who's just...
Main lead is a
Kayla,
boy.
do you want to describe her friend?
He's a simp. Simp. He is
in love with her.
Oh, so I would
In
also
every
like to
capacity.
point out that he's very in love with her. He also It's definitely played by like 4 different actors. Like, it is
Like, very much so. Like, he begins the movie
so
they all,
ugly. As ugly as
very
possible.
ugly. But, like, purposefully made ugly,
Purposely
not in
ugly.
a, like, oh, this is just what this guy looks like. No, purposefully
they
made
purposely
ugly.
make him look ugly.
Though they also purposely make her look ugly, too.
They do.
They make both of them look extremely ugly. And then they kind of grow, like, they kind of change a little bit, blah, 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 blah. Not even a plot point, really.
Yeah, and then they become
sorta,
less ugly.
They get sort of have a makeover.
They become less ugly by the time the drama's over.
Mm-hmm. So, those two are trying to make a band. He plays the drums. Or a traditional
Whatever
Chinese drum.
traditional Chinese percussion is.
Sorry if we're not that informed on traditional Chinese instruments. This movie or show did not actually educate us at all.
No. It was not great.
In any capacity.
No.
No. So from there, they cannot recruit anybody. No one wants anything to do with them. So they are forced to go into this, like, what is the rumor? That they're witches? There's a rumor going around of why you don't go into that dorm room.
Like...
Is it that they're witches?
Something, like, yeah, they're into
stupid,
weird stuff. Just stay away kind of a thing.
And so she goes in and just finds 4 girls, and they are essentially... The only word to describe it is weebs.
Weebs.
Freshmen, and also weebs.
The biggest weebs.
So much weebery.
And I think this is really the plot point of this movie that was really surprising, and also there was so much of it.
And no, at this point, this is the point where we, like, me and Kayla watch this and we're like, what
is happening?
Because at that point we were, like, a kind of bored. This was kind of a whatever movie. We thought, like, oh, is this going to be a turnaround where, like she's going to end up falling for a piano boy? Whatever. Piano Boy's gonna make a turn of heart. No. The weebs happen and this takes a turn to the... It's just... To the insane.
It's really, really weird. That in a Chinese movie, there was this much, like, focus on, like, Japanese culture.
But not even just that, but also just, like... It was just so much branded Japanese culture.
It was like non-product placement, but it was just like brand. You could tell what it was if you
it was
like you could if you like looked at it enough, you were like, oh,
there's just like all of Black Butler in the back shelf over there. Yeah,
there's a lot of Black Butler. One is more like a gothy weeb, and like she has so much Black Butler merch.
A lot.
It was excessive, I think.
It was incredibly
they recruit
excessive.
Them. Yeah.
Because
they
were desperate.
Them to be...
Because no one else...
they're desperate
and
for
basically when
and they also bribe them.
They
have to bribe them.
Yep.
The main girl bribes them with,
anime figures.
With just figures. Yeah. She promises to buy them whatever figure they want.
Yep.
Yeah. My other favorite thing is that this essentially also, like, the joke was that, like, she had no idea how much figures cost. Like, she's just like, oh no, it's a figure, how much could it be? $10? And the guy has to be like, are you an idiot? Like, they're like $100 figures that they want to do
You're
this.
offering one a week.
One a week.
Yeah, she's offering her one a week.
Every single one of them.
So that's 4 people, one a week. The other thing is we also have here a thing that just says bad wigs.
They are wearing really bad wigs.
Yeah, 2 of them specifically. They play like I don't even remember what they play, but they are like very like Lolita-esque weebs. And they just wear like the very big wigs, and they look like wigs, and they look like cheap wigs.
But hey, they're in the second dimension, so that's cool to them, I guess.
I guess?
I guess?
Sure.
I can't really speak for that side of gaming and like neoculture, I guess. I don't know what that is, because I'm not really into that kind of stuff, so I don't really understand it myself, but I understand that
Again,
this
is not a judgment on...
No, it's more of like, they're different than everyone else in the folk group, because they're like, why would a bunch of, like, really, you know, I don't know, 21st century people, I guess you'd say, be into, like, old, ancient music and be, like, how is that compatible?
Also into anime.
I mean?
But again, this is not a judgment on people that like anime or people that like dressing in Lolita style. This is not a judgment on that. This is more a judgment on the fact that this movie went in this direction, and we're very confused as to
it's
how
very confusing as
all
to
of these
why.
elements fit together.
I want to know why this is an element in a Chinese traditional music versus Western music movie. Like, it's an unnecessary
like,
plot point.
It's
me. So unnecessary.
It made more sense to me because I didn't know
such a large plot point.
Yeah. Because for you guys, you already knew that was going to be, like, you knew the end result was the Battle of the Bands at the end. In the hallway thing. Like, I didn't get this. So I didn't know that what was coming up. I didn't have an end goal, or I was just like, at this point, I actually just texted out a picture saying, I don't know what's going on, but I'm still here. I'm still riding along with this story. So I was like,
yeah.
Uh-huh.
It was a lot. It just came out of nowhere. And, like, my thing was at that point, I had no idea how we got to the Battle of the Bands when we were currently at this moment.
This is what we were doing with the movie, yes.
So,
very weird.
After bribing them, they essentially agreed to being like, alright, we'll be part of your little ensemble for the bribe, but you also aren't cool enough to be really, like, hang out with us anyway, so... Meanwhile, this is like the first steps towards transformation for like the two main leads, where they just suddenly start realizing, I should wash my hair, maybe, or like.
I mean, mind you, we didn't mention this before. These are like weirdly like disgusting things that happen. They made food in a water
cooler. They make hot pot in a water cooler.
Make a hot pot of water cooler. Yeah, because
the water Because if you've ever seen, like, a water dispenser, like, just the water dispensers that have the big jugs of water, they're heating food in one of those, and I don't know how that thing makes enough heat to heat anything.
Well, it makes hot water.
Because it does have it does, but none of it is...
Not hot pot ready.
Like,
it was so random. It was just basically saying...
It's warm water.
Yeah, because they weren't allowed to eat in the dorms, but they kept doing it anyway because they didn't care. They're just like...
Okay.
Whatever.
Because in the show...
In the practice
in
rooms,
the show,
not dorms, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not allowed to practice... Because that makes sense why you don't eat in a practice room.
Yeah, it makes sense.
You probably
shouldn't. It makes sense why, and that's an actual good rule. But in the show, it kind of makes more sense. Because in the show, they establish that the cafeteria makes bad food. Or at least, like, they establish the cafeteria makes bad food. So their thing is that, like, they can't get food from the outside, so they have to get food delivered in secret, and then they just sneak it in and eat it.
Mm-hmm. Do they do the hot pot thing in the show as well?
No, it is just prepared food.
Okay.
It is prepared food. It is just food that you eat. And it makes more sense, and it actually is a plot point. That does
make sense. I was like, they're just always eating... and talking about what their plan is to win over this piano boy. Meanwhile, Simp is just tagging along because he wants to be with the girl.
Yeah, he just does literally anything she asked of him. He will do
literally anything, to the point of it just being a like.
That is hence why we call him the Simp, because he really just is the entire movie.
He's an IRL simp.
But he simps for like his best friend, so it's a little weird. But like,
whatever.
Yeah.
So as they're both like, well, first off, Simp shows off saying like, but by the way, I was also like into weeb culture. Let me into your group. And they're just like, you can't. You're too ugly. Which is why it was kind of like the whole transformation thing started.
It's starting. Because then they end up having to find a practice room because all the practice rooms are taken. and like there's nowhere else to practice, so they have to practice after hours
and
in this like
and bribe a guard
corner.
to like
And bribe a guard.
to be like, hey, can we practice, please? And he's like,
But
sure.
we also love the guard.
I
For
love
a
him. He's
condition.
the best boy of the
One
movie.
I love him.
condition, and they don't. And then of course they don't say until he shows up, and it's like, all right, I'll let you guys practice. Now it's time for
The condition.
the condition, and he just wants to sing, and then they're just like, oh, okay, and so he does.
But of course he can't sing.
No, of course not. Why
No.
would he know how to sing? And so he's just like, oh, thanks. I've been wanting to sing for my whole youth, and I never had a chance. You guys you're pretty nice to let me sing, kind of a thing. So he kind of like,
Even though like they're not letting him sing out of the goodness of their hearts, they're doing it
No.
only for their
Yep.
own gain.
for sure.
Just saying.
Yeah. So they're kind of just like, all right, well that gets him to like them essentially. So he's like, oh, we don't hate you anymore. So then
So they
They're
get their
kind
first
of-
gig.
yeah, they're kind of established at this point, and they have their name where they're called the 2.5 dimension. What? I guess.
I guess.
And
I think
they're-
that's an anime thing that I don't understand.
It-
I've stopped watching anime years ago.
Yeah.
I think it's just like them saying like, we're not quite in the normal
The
world,
third
which I guess
dimension?
would be the third dimension. And so they're kind
But
of
we're
like,
not actually animated,
we're not
so we're not in
animated,
the
so-
second dimension.
yeah, I don't know. So they sort of have a gig, and it's very different, I guess, in the show than it is in the movie. But as for the movie, it's an anime convention, which is just okay.
Sure.
Of course it is. I've never been to an anime convention that randomly has a band of traditional Chinese instruments,
For
but you know
sure.
what? There's a first time for everything.
And this is when one of the plot points start, where we find out that one of the girls that's in the ensemble is actually secretly super internet famous.
Yep.
Because she's actually
Yep.
talented. Shocking.
She has
What?
like a
No
random
way.
YouTube channel that is just like really popular.
Her hands.
Yeah.
And it's also just her hands.
Mhm.
Yes.
Playing the instrument. Like no
No face
nothing of the
reveal.
rest of it. No face reveal, just hands.
But she wears a certain
Yep.
ring, and then when Simp finds out, that's the ring. Are you like, what is it, the 1,000-fingered
Whatever. I don't
queen
remember what the
or whatever?
name is.
I don't know. Basically starts
Something
simping over
like
her
that.
as well.
No, he's also a simp for her. Yeah.
He's just a like he is just
He's
a simp.
just a
Just a
simp.
general simp.
And he's just like, you're that really famous person, aren't you? And she's just like, yeah, so what? And she's like, oh, and then that's when he's like, oh, we might actually do well here. So they perform at the anime convention right after a weird, like, knockoff Hatsune Miku and generic.
It's like an
No,
actual.
that
it's
is-
an actual
that's later.
C-pop
There's-
group.
This is an actual group. That's actually I think it's Sing Girls.
Yeah.
And that's an actual group of that's an actual Chinese idol group.
Okay, I figured it would
Like
be.
They're real and they actually have music and I actually like some of their songs.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah, and this is where right before they perform, Simp Boy decides to like take off his glasses.
Become a different person.
He's just a
Which
different
again,
person.
Can you see?
Different
Like, why-
person.
were the glasses an aesthetic choice that you can still see?
I don't know.
'Cause he
Like,
never
I've never
puts them
been
back
like that.
on.
No, he never
He
does.
never puts them back
No.
on. So like he always had this choice. And also because everyone starts to leave before their performance. And so the way they get, I guess, win the ladies back is he takes off his like jacket and like takes off his glasses and becomes quote unquote
Well,
hot. And I'm like,
No,
Okay.
not to
What's
mention,
happening?
he literally loses his braces as well.
Like the braces are
yes,
just
That
somewhere
was-
in those 2 seconds he lost his braces.
That was the funniest thing to me. Is like, okay, cool. He takes off. I've seen this before. He takes off the glasses, takes off his shirt, and suddenly, wow, I could see him in a totally different light. But I've never once seen someone take off their braces and been like, oh,
immediately.
Braces.
that's
As if it's like-
amazing.
gone
Again,
immediately.
a choice, clearly.
The braces were always just an aesthetic choice. They were never actually there to help his teeth.
Nope. So he changes actors. Suddenly, way more.
Essentially, a different person plays him.
Yep. And they're just like, well, time to start jamming it up because no one's interested anyway because the cute girls are gone. So we have to. No one wants to listen to boring ancient music. So what are we gonna do now? Yeah.
We just gotta get a hot man, which is gonna bring the ladies
because
back.
there's someone
A
in the
quote-unquote hot
someone
man.
in the
Quote,
audience
unquote.
is just like, oh wow, a cute guy.
Yeah, it was so. It was funny because you showed us the equivalent scene in the show, and they say the exact same thing. It's just
They do, even
a hot
though-
guy. They literally say it like that. It's just a hot guy.
So the show, to explain what the equivalent scene is in the show is, I have to explain an entirely different plot line with
New plot
show
line.
only characters. So our main girl has a cousin who teaches at the school, and she teaches ancient Chinese instruments. And randomly at her door one day appears an actor, and like he's there. I think he lives next door, whatever. They strike up, or that's an entirely show only plot point that I will not explain in detail. But so at some point this actor is going to perform at an award show for like some reason, and he is just he asks them to perform with him, and like they just do a performance with him, and it's a singing performance. It has them, a band, and him singing.
Yeah, well, it's very different.
It's
than
very
an
different than them
convention.
performing a Chinese Vocaloid song at an anime convention.
I will say I prefer it.
It is
Yeah,
it's
it was
a lot
fine.
better. It looks a lot more like just
It
professional
actually looked
and better
like a
quality.
gig, you know what I mean? Not
Yeah.
just a scrap band. Let's go. Anyone can take the stage.
And I also think like they're better. Like it's a more interest. Like there's a reason that this I think would go somewhat viral. Like because it's interesting and it's different and it's like an actual famous actor, and it's like
Yeah, I was gonna say
like more is happening.
from the show, the folk music and was actually sounded a lot more like traditional in that aspect. But when the movie played, when they're all playing their ancient instruments, it just seemed they didn't play it as like you normally would. It felt like they were definitely trying to modernize it to make it still more appealing. Whereas the show still kept on to a lot more of the this is kind of how music goes, so we'll just add in more.
We're just gonna
like,
play music.
Yeah.
So
Also,
that kind of made more sense.
in the movie is in the anime convention is the introduction of what I would like to call the Weeb Cheering Squad.
The Weeb Cheering Squad, which I did not expect to be a recurring theme, but
no,
it is.
but it is. Because when they're performing, it's like the way they're gathering a crowd is just incredibly unnatural and very bizarre. Because everyone is just off doing different things, and then they just like sort of slowly like come over to them, and like in a single file line come like all of these men with like light sticks, and they just like
They
single
have
file
light
line
sticks
in
and
the
they have,
front
like,
row.
Naruto headbands.
Yeah.
And they're just like head banging along. I'm just like,
and then
what?
they're just like jumping and like fan chanting essentially just to the song, and it's very
professional fan chants.
Yep.
Yes, that was more on them later, but yeah, that was a thing that happened at the convention. At this point, they also were recorded, of course, on the Chinese YouTubes, and now suddenly they're going viral all over the school, and so the classical kids are all like, "Ooh, these kiddos are trying to like act cool," and the folk people are all like, "Yeah, let's go! Ancient instruments are cool." Which eventually...
Also, at this point, I want to point out the fact that at this point, these classical kids have done nothing.
No, that's the
They're
other
doing
thing.
absolutely
Yeah.
nothing.
Quote-unquote villains, but
They're
they
not,
have actually
though.
done nothing to make... Because you know that if this was in an American show, they would have, like, maliciously tried to do something. Maliciously either tried to get them kicked out or stop. Like, they would have maliciously tried to make their lives harder.
Make fun of the folk kids, specifically one of
But
the girls
like
in
the
the
folk
band.
kids have Yeah.
But like,
that
I took
is
your
not
diary and now I'm reading it out loud and making
like
fun
they're
of you
bullies,
for it.
but like they're
bullies.
not, I think, overtly malicious like villains of pure evil.
No.
As the show almost makes them out to be.
No, they're definitely not.
They play out as the snobs, but in reality, they're all snobs.
But in a weird
for their
way,
own
like
instruments.
the folk kids, when they start talking to each other, just say also weirdly snobby things about the Western music kids.
Yeah. And
Like,
even
they'll just
like
say
when they're
certain things
in
that
the
are just like,
initial
"That's
fights and
snobby."
stuff, talking about fighting and stuff, it goes both ways. Who starts the fight
Yeah.
and who is trying to like, oh, this person made fun of classical music. Now the classical music kids are gonna go beat up the folk kids. Oh, the classical kid made fun of folk music, so the folk kids are gonna, it goes back and forth.
It's like an
They're-
equal.
they're
Like
both
there's
bad.
an equal. Yeah, there's like an equal like getting back at each other type situation. No one is worse than the other one.
No.
So as these videos like going viral, it actually makes its way over to the piano boy, who's also just like
Just living
watches
his life.
it, and
He's
he's
like,
just like,
whatever. He's
I
like,
don't care.
okay.
I think he literally just is like,
Like-
get this out of here. I don't care. I got
don't-
to practice.
But also, they're showing him, like, they're showing this to him while he's practicing the piano.
yes.
So it's not even like he's not like, he's just actively playing the piano when someone comes up to him and is like, hey, watch this. From this
It's-
random girl that, like,
Likes
essentially
you for some reason.
likes you and confessed her love for you after meeting her once. He's like, I don't care.
Yep.
So is that when she does it again?
Yeah, I think she sends him a video saying, now you know what instrument I play. Haha, that means we can be together, right? Wink, wink. And then it's like, this clearly wasn't bold enough, so I gotta do something a little bit more extravagant. What's extravagant? Yes, candles and hearts. Let's just...
Candles in the shape of a heart
So-
right in front of where you know he's practicing.
Let me just stand in front of the practice hall where you are, surrounded in a heart of...
Also, surrounded by people.
yes, everyone knows
People
what's going on.
everywhere. Everyone is there.
Everyone's there.
Every one of his classmates is there.
And then she just starts screaming, hey, I like you, just like constantly. And he's just like practicing, and he's just like, all the
And, like,
classical
at
kids
this
are like, yo,
point-
you gotta go deal with this kid. What's going on?
She's also screaming in the middle of the night while all of us are trying to practice. Like, at this point, he kind of, I think I get it. Like, he's harsh,
Mhm.
but he's fed up.
Yeah.
Like, at this point, I understand. Like, he is fed up with
He
this
just
girl.
wants to be left alone. Like, that's all he wants.
Which is not an unreasonable ask for a person to leave you alone after you've asked them multiple times, because she's screaming and he comes up and just very bluntly says, I've told you before, I don't care.
I
Like,
want
at this
to
point, I
study
think he's so
abroad, and you're
exasperated. I
distracting
wanna-
me.
But, like, at some point, like, he might, like, the part I think where she gets super upset is where he's like, I think he goes something to the equivalent of, like, I don't care what you play.
Mhm.
Which I think is, like, kind of, like, yeah, sure, it's harsh. But also, after everything else that's happened of,
You
like,
could have
oh,
been
I've
like,
done all
I
this
don't
just to
care
tell you.
if you
like, I
played the
don't-
oboe or a violin or even a piano. I still don't care.
Like, we could play the same instrument, but it wouldn't matter. Like, this is
Yeah.
not happening.
It's not because you're a folk player. It has nothing to do with.
I think that's how he I think that's what it meant, but that's not, like, the way he says it. I think she takes
Yeah.
it differently.
She takes it, like,
Right.
Because he just
as
says,
a
I don't
personal
care what
insult.
you play.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But then again, like, I think what he's trying to say, and is just exhausted because he's had to say it, I think, 4 times at this point, is, please leave me alone. I don't care about anybody. I have a goal, leave me alone.
Right.
And that's not unreasonable.
No, it's
It's
not.
not.
He has yet to do anything wrong.
No.
Yeah, like it was super odd in that aspect, which then leads to the idiot of the school
My favorite thing in
Oh
the
my
world.
god.
that needs to be expelled.
That man needs, like, why is the question of why.
Just a why.
So we mentioned that she's surrounded
By candles.
with
She's in
candles.
the middle of the heart, by the way. She's
in the
standing
middle
in
of
the heart.
a candle again.
Candle heart.
Candle heart in the middle of it, and a boy is walking by with what is
And,
the
like,
equivalent
piano
of a
boy-
red solo cup.
Solo cup. It's like I think it's equivalent of like if you just had like a cup of soda, like a fast food cup.
Yeah,
It looks like one of those.
Yeah,
it
it
looks
was-
like a fast food cup
it was
that you would not like. You just expect to have liquid in it.
right. And so in desperation, clearly the piano boy is like, stop this.
I'm done.
With heart. I'm going to take your water and splash
Or when
it
he
away.
hits his water.
And then all of a sudden, the candle decides to go whoosh, and then he's just like, "What the freak was in that?" And he's like, turpentine."
Turpentine?
Like who
And then
is
it's like,
carrying around
what the
turpentine in a cup?
He literally, I think, says, "Why are you carrying around turpentine?"
He's like, "To clean
And
my
I had the same question.
to clean my instruments." And I'm like, "No,
What?
you don't do that.
Who does
Turpentine
that?
needs to stay in a
Who?
metal can. It's some danger."
Or at least in like something labeled "danger." Don't throw on candles.
Oh my
Oh my
gosh.
God.
It was like so odd. I was just like, lol.
And then at that point, like somehow Simp Boy gets so mad, and I'm like, don't get mad at Piano Boy. Get mad at the idiot that's carrying around
Idiot with the
turpentine in a cup.
Yeah. I'm glad they did notice like that he was an idiot.
Because
for doing
Piano
that.
Boy
But
is
yeah,
also like
He's
he feels bad
a
about
big
it
idiot.
because Piano Boy didn't mean to throw turpentine on the candles. Like that wasn't the intention.
I mean, I don't think anyone, purposefully throws, like, he's not, like, he wants her to leave him alone, not murder her.
Yeah.
exactly.
He
Which is
didn't
why he was just
intend
like,
to
what the
hurt
heck?
her, yeah.
And so Simp saves the day. I think that was the whole point of it, was just that we need to have Simp saves the day. So he grabs a fire
So
extinguisher
that we had a
and
reason to care.
blows.
About
So we
Simp.
care
I
about
mean,
Simp
it was
boys.
like from minute 0, you see a guy and a girl, both that are obviously get along together with similar interests. You know they're getting together at the end of the show. That's just how
it's
these
gonna go,
things
yeah.
go. Like I got it. Like so.
But also, like, he doesn't make him any less of just, like, a full-on simp for this girl, like, to the point where I'm like, do you have your own personality?
I don't know.
Because I think
Clearly
his
not.
personality is being her friend.
Pretty much.
That's
I
all
think
his
that
personality
is
in the
his
show. That's
entire
why
personality.
The only thing we can call him is the simp, because he has no other personality in the
Because
in
he's
the
not
movie.
even like really invested into his drums or percussion instrument that he
No,
plays.
he isn't.
Mm-mm.
He doesn't really care. Like, he has no development outside of that. All of, like, the 4 weeb girls have far more development than he does.
In the movie, at least, yeah. I don't know how
And
it goes
he's,
for
like,
the show.
male lead of that show. Male lead of that movie.
I'm saying for the show, does
The show, he has a little bit more development. I think there's a little bit of development with his father, who wants him to study abroad, but overall,
yeah, it's like literally
still,
one
like,
line in the show, and you're just like, okay,
cool.
that's it. All right,
Like,
move
the
on.
show itself has a lot of, it's just sort of like the same thing that happens in the movie, just with a lot of random BS happening in the middle. Like, you learn a lot more. You learn all 4 of the weeb girls. You learn all 4 of their backstories.
And they're
You
we
get,
basically
like, little
only
bits
get
of
one
this
of
and
their
that.
1.5 backstories for like
Yeah.
Anybody.
the other two. The 2 wig girls you know nothing about.
No.
They just
No,
get
and
made
you
fun of for their
learn the
clothes,
2
and that's
wig-
it.
Yeah.
That's all
You
that
know
you
a little
have.
bit about the main the one who's like internet famous, you know a little bit about her, but like it's nothing
And
really
you know a little bit about
substantial.
her family.
Yeah.
That's about it.
That's it.
Which is the fact that her family doesn't approve, which is, of
Wow,
course, that's what
shocking.
this is about.
Shocking.
It's always. But
Yeah.
you enrolled your kid in music school. I don't know. It's like, I didn't want to
That's
enroll you
also
in
the
music
thing of just,
school.
like, I don't want her focusing on her music.
Oh
I shall
no, but
enroll
I
her
enrolled
in
her
music
music
school.
school.
But I wanted to
Shall
roll her
roll her
an
music.
interesting instrument. I don't know. That was it doesn't make any sense. But we'll move past
doesn't.
that.
All right.
Because it's the thing of this, like, how'd you let it get to this point? Because that's hundreds of hours of lessons that you had to pay for her to be able to do this.
And they're
She
disapproving.
didn't teach it to herself.
I think they were
know
disapproving more of the internet stuff, probably.
I think they were also disapproving of her being a weeb.
I think that.
Probably.
They also didn't like the way she dressed.
How dare you? How dare you be a weeb? We want you to be a classical, like, live in the past. We're rich. That's what we want from our daughter. Kind of a thing. I don't know. Whatever. So, we gather again with our ensemble of the simp and the 4 weebs and her, and she's like, alright, well, here are your, like, $100 action figures, bands off. We're not doing this anymore, because literally my only driving goal for all this
has been
has
ruined.
left me.
Yep.
My
Even
heart
though
has
this
been
is the
ripped
only
into
thing
pieces.
that brings any of you any form of happiness, because or else you are just essentially outcast from our school. I am now disbanding it because it's not even I am leaving. It is I am ending this.
It's over.
Everyone
the
go
band
home.
is actually
Yep.
over. And then they're like, but I actually like my instrument. And that's which is funny because this is like halfway through the show and then you're just like, oh, you guys actually like your instruments? That's why you like folk music, not just because you're weird and different? No, it's like, they're just like, no, I genuinely like folk music and Chinese instruments are cool and I think they're better than classical music.
Which is also where I see the which is also where you get like a lot of the snobbiness in the other direction, where they're
sure.
like, no, I think we're better.
Because
and I'm
we're
like,
OG and all that.
so
like,
you
we're
are
the
essentially the
older,
same
so
as
it's
them.
better. Yeah,
Yep.
it was really odd. And then she's just like, oh, I never thought of that. Maybe I don't want to play this instrument if I clearly don't care about it. Kind of a
Even
thing.
though she then continues to play her instrument forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, I've been doing it for so long at this point. I guess I'm doing it.
I just
I
have
mean,
to.
It's
in
my
the
one
show,
talent.
you want to explain it to me because you mentioned that one of her cousins is a teacher. Is that
Yeah,
like
one of her cousins is a teacher.
Is that
and-
kind of the driving force for her to play the instrument then?
No,
or
not at all.
Okay, so that
Not
still
at all.
doesn't make any
but
sense.
it's the same character arc she goes through in the movie. She goes through the same character arc of learning why she actually likes the instrument that she plays.
Okay.
Because in the beginning, she can't even name, because a scene that happens in the show is that like the piano boy will say, hey, do you even like, he's talking about the piano and how much he likes the piano. He's naming off all of these great piano masters, like these great classical composers, these great piano masters. And he's like, who's even the master of your instrument? I think partially to like thing, and also partially because he's curious of like, does she even have any idea of what she's playing? And she can't really name anything. Like, she doesn't really know her instrument that well. And sort of that is sort of, and then she just, it's really funny because Simp Boy knows more about her instrument and like gives her the history of her instrument, and she lists that same story he tells her off like 4 more times in the show. And I'm just like, you didn't come up with that. You don't care. You're just doing it because you heard it, and you had to do no research for it.
Oops.
You had Simp
So
Boy
like
do the work
that's
for
sort
you.
of what happens. The thing with her and her cousin is more that the cousin is very, very serious, and she is far more like childlike and carefree, and it's sort of teaching someone to live in the moment and all that other blah blah blah. You know that same story we get 1,000 times over.
Yep.
Yeah.
There is a weird like side. They do some type of weird thing with her mom, where she tells her mom that she might not want to play the instrument anymore, and her mom gives her this weird story about how she's connected to it because she apparently listened to that type of music when she was like giving birth
Oh
to
yeah,
her.
she was in
Birth.
labor.
Like,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
that is why they wanted her to play this instrument, is because we listened to it while I
Well,
was
she was in labor. Like, that sounds
sus.
Odd.
okay.
That's an odd reason to give your child this instrument.
Mm-hmm. And then have her spend her whole
Especially
life dedicated
because,
to this
again,
instrument.
I think what you have to remember about all these instruments is that these are not cheap instruments.
No.
they're-
These are expensive ass instruments. Like, these are people whose like families have invested a lot of money into these kids' like passion for music. The fact that she just up to this point has not cared about her instrument, that's a lot of work to put into something you don't care about.
Yeah. It was kind of weird how, like, yeah, and it's interesting because it's like one of those
can you
instruments.
imagine the amount of people that are dedicated and want to go to music school?
Yeah, it's she plays the equivalent of like a piano where you can't like I'll just pack it up and bring it around. No, this is one of those that you have to like keep in a spot, and then you just have one at home and you have one at your practice
Yeah,
because
it's a big instrument. Yeah,
it's not one that you can like a flute or one of the small like horns and stuff where they pack it up and stuff. No, this is one of those that you have to like leave at your place as you
travel to your instrument.
Exactly. So it's kind of odd. Like yes. Well.
But at this point, she has not cared.
Nope. Well, at this point, they're just like, oh, do I even like my instrument? And then it goes through, I don't really, like, the in-between is kind of odd between this, and then all of a sudden they have, like, an assembly where they decide...
I think it's the beginning of school assembly. I think
it's like after like a school break, yeah.
Okay.
Like a I don't know if it was a summer break. I don't know how Chinese school system works.
I don't either.
But they go on like I think an end of term break.
Yeah.
And then that assembly is them starting a new term.
It must be something around that, like, because it was kind of like they all went home because the simp went abroad for a bit. And like because
we get to see that all of like the wig girls don't even have friends at home.
Yeah,
and,
they're kind of lonely.
To see all of
Everyone
the
makes
wig girls
fun of them.
families.
Yeah, that's when you kind of see all that, and she's all like, "I don't know if I want to play the instrument," and blah blah blah. And so they all go back to school, and they're just like, "Well, the band's over," so they're not like sitting next to each other or hanging out or anything like that. And the music director or whatever you like to call him, the director in charge of the school, principal. I guess is like one of the deans.
Sort of.
I don't know. Whatever. He kind of goes off and says, "So we're really happy with our classical music program. So from now on, we're just going to cancel like any folk enrollment. I guess we're kind of like letting."
Did that happen in the movie?
Yeah, it kind of said that. He was like, "Oh, we're not like he didn't say like, oh, you're all leaving the school or anything. No, he just said
because that's what happens in the show as well.
Yeah,
like,
it's the same.
We're not accepting. Here's the thing, and it in a weird way, I get that everyone's upset about it, but it makes sense because they're saying we don't get, at least in the show, they're saying our enrollment in the classical music department is so low, we cannot afford to keep it open.
I don't think they.
And
for the
that
folk
is
one.
In the show that's the equivalent of like the attendance is so low we have to phase it out.
Okay, that makes
sense.
And
I think in the movie it's something about how
phase it out.
Something in the movie, I think it's about how there's just no interest in it anymore.
To the classical stuff.
Yeah.
Like, the classical is more popular, and it's giving us a better more
our school image is better.
The school
way.
rep. It's all about school rep. Is kind of what they say, and the classical music program doing really well is kind of what is important. And then the folk music isn't that impressive to people. So why should we bother putting in that? At this point, it's super odd because in the movie they do have like the multiple uniform thing, and they have all the classical music in the front, and then all the folk kids in the back. In a smaller margin of them. And that's when, like, it clicks, I guess, for our main lead girl. She's all like, but I kind of want my instrument to be, like, popular. So she's all like, well, okay, we gotta announce first that they have, like, a show program.
The classical kids have a showcase.
Yeah, they have a showcase where they're going to, like, basically, again, it's all about the school rep. Just show off and say, like, this is our
like
students.
On television.
Yeah, on television.
It's, like, actually,
in front of a lot of parents. Yeah, it's
meant to, like, recruit, like, kids into music programs because there's a lot of, like, small children that would be, like, around the age where, like, if you're going to invest your time into learning a musical instrument,
it's when
when you kind of have to start.
Yeah. It was it's sad, and that's something that I don't like about music like that is that there's a lot like if you're gonna do it, there's a lot of parents that are like, all right, you're 5 years old, you can hold the spoon. Time to learn how to hold the flute. And I'm just like, really? Ugh, weird. But anyway,
kids need hobbies.
True, but there's other
kids
hobbies.
Gotta do something.
That's true.
Like what?
Like video games and getting fat on
that's
the
a
couch,
helpful, more helpful hobby.
Or how about creating podcasts about K-pop music?
Dan, never have children.
Never have children. Got it.
Never have children.
I'll write that down somewhere. Anyway, so meanwhile they're like, wait a minute, that's not fair. We want more kids to like folk music. Why should only the classical? You think that our folk music, classical, or I keep saying classical, but ancient Chinese music
Traditional
isn't
Chinese
good enough for you
song,
guys?
Yes.
So it's kind of like they're just like, well, you guys don't even have an ensemble, so you can't perform anyway. So
like that's the other thing of like these kids have put in no effort to make their like. That's the one thing I find very funny with this show is that like the classical, like the Chinese folk music kids are complaining a lot about, oh, we don't get the support, we don't do this, we don't do that. I'm like, you don't even have an ensemble.
No, they don't.
Why would you? Why do you think you can do the showcase if you don't have an ensemble? Like the classical Western kids have this ensemble and have just been doing showcases.
Yeah, they have first.
Like
they have a first
Turner
chair for like a
beginning.
violin, which is like one of the main girls, and then we have like the piano boy. So like they already have like their leads and stuff.
And you know that they've been doing this because when Shinfest is her first time and his page turner. That is when they're doing an ensemble piece. That's why none of the Western kids can be his page turner.
Because they're also
all performing.
Yeah, it was
they
super
had to,
odd.
It's super odd that
weird.
like they don't even like try. They're just like, oh well, we don't. It's just odd.
Yeah, so
this whole
basically,
movie is very odd.
At this point, they're just like, well, our program is threatened, and not in a way of like we're getting kicked out of the school. No, it's just we're not accepting more students. Which I still think is...
Yeah, they could kick out these kids, and they don't.
They don't.
They don't.
But that's when they're like, you don't have an ensemble, and then they do the whole classic, like, what I want to be a part of it. And they all start slowly standing. So it first starts with, the main lead girl, then Simp, then, reluctantly, their old bandmates for the 4 Weeb girls... And then slowly, everyone else just stands up, and they're like, yes, we will create an ensemble and save all of folk ancient Chinese music. And so the director is all flustered, and he's just like, I can't handle it. You guys are big bad. I'm leaving. Bye. And then it starts like a halfway fight, and they're just like, all right, we could settle this like real musicians with a band off. And
a band off.
Well, first off, they're just like, no, well, they do the whole, like, yeah, there's no way you could beat us kind of a thing. We'll prove ourselves and stuff like, do we even meet your challenge or not kind of a thing. And, like, I never really got how they decided they were going to do this. I just thought it was going to be, like, at the ensemble, they would just be like, okay, who's good enough? And then they'll go to the ensemble. I thought that's what they were doing. I didn't know how this was going to go down. But no, it just brings us to the hallway. And that's how
the hallway scene.
Apparently,
this is what the hallway scene is about.
Yeah, it's just a band off, apparently. This is what it all culminated to. I didn't know it was happening. Like, oh, is this the thing they were talking about? Is this the band off? Oh, I guess it is. Which is just the dean of students... giving a tour to some hopeful parents, just being like, maybe this is a good school.
And I also think it's the people that are like setting up the showcase. I think
probably. I think it's like I couldn't tell who they were. I didn't think they aren't significant to the real plot.
No.
So I just was like,
first time we see them.
I don't care who they are, but basically they had some, pull to, because the director was kind of like trying to like make him happy and all that, and then all of a sudden one of the internet famous weeb girl, she like pulls out her instrument and just starts going off playing all by herself in the middle of the hallway.
She can't pull out her instrument.
Okay,
she
take
just
that
is
back.
in the hallway because this is another instrument that is hard to move.
Yes.
So she plays one of the
like...
large instruments.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's a very beautiful. Of all the ancient instruments, that was easily my favorite.
I mean, I will say all of the instruments are beautiful looking.
Yes.
Even like all of like these are well done, and like they don't. I've seen people react to how they play the instruments, and like they're not great. Like the way they're playing is not necessary, especially with your violins and stuff. It doesn't look realistic. But I can't speak to that from personal reference.
Yeah,
I don't play the violin. But like from like a person that has no idea how a violin is played, they don't look terrible on how they portray playing a violin.
Mm-hmm. No, it was fine. So she just starts playing, and it was kind of like a "you're next" kind of a thing, and then nothing happens, and they're like, "Don't worry, they'll answer the challenge," and it's just like awkwardly like. The dean is kind of like, all right, well, moving on. That was weird.
And then you just see a harp being wheeled down the hallway.
And all of a sudden, she starts playing. And then they're just like, oh, is this like a little thing you prepare for all your people you visit? And he's like,
sure.
Awkward. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And then everyone shows up. In the middle of the hallway.
Like multiple
and would like
people.
to point out that this like fence gate in the hallway is still there. So
oh yes, did we
closed.
say this?
This is where it's happening.
So since they kept fighting between them because again like they didn't get along for no reason.
We mentioned at the beginning the fight is what makes the fence happen, which we didn't realize until we did the second watch of that beginning part.
That was where the fence came from.
That separates the two classes because how dare they mingle? I guess whatever. So the middle of it is just a massive gate. And so they're playing through the gate, and then the classical people are playing
on the other side of the gate.
They just start. Well, in the movie version, they play "Flight of the Bumblebee," which is a great piece, and it's very high paced, and it's a good one to have like a battle.
And it's a
quote,
fast
unquote.
scene in the movie. It's a
it's a fast song, scene.
Look, we are almost at the end of that movie at this point.
Yes, this is like in the last
right there
of the way through the movie.
Yeah, it's like basically over at this point. And so I guess okay, and again, like another point where I'm like I just don't have enough musical skill to know that the ancient music won. I guess.
I think it's very unclear.
It was kind of like
why they win.
All the classical kids are like, we lost hard. Like they don't even like be like, we did well for ourselves. No, it was kind of like we got owned, and I'm just like, but you guys all sounded.
I don't understand how you get owned.
How do you get owned at a band off? I mean, this isn't Scott Pilgrim or anything where they literally kill you or whatever. It was kind of weird. I didn't get it. But yeah, so the ancient Chinese kids all won, and they're like, haha, now you got to keep your end of the bargain, which was what again? Because they never really it was really
they never really said what the bargain was about.
What was the you win? What do you win? I don't know.
What do you win if you win?
They never said anything, and until they move on, they just move on, kind of like, all right, now you guys got to keep up your end of the bargain, and then just moves on with the plot.
My other favorite thing was just like that they have to like randomly, very dramatically open doors for the piano.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're like, we can't move them into the hallway, so we
gotta open this door.
Can you hear it?
No, you can't.
You would not be able to.
Shit from the piano because they're down the hall.
Yeah, the only indication to make it seem like the in the movie that the folk group won was because they were louder. That was it, and that's not really a good.
Well, the folk group came in with that guy who plays like the weird trumpet thing, and something about him.
It kind of
like flusters the classical music kids until like stop playing, and it's very.
And then they just stop playing.
Yeah, they're just like, wow,
and it is,
cool.
I have no idea why.
I don't know. Couldn't tell you why.
in this TV show version that you watched, Sammy showed us this part. They did like the piano guy is talking like, oh, they're like beating us in pace and whatnot. Like it makes more
like I think that's
sense,
just like
but not really.
I guess they try to explain it where it's like they're trying to match rhythm.
Yeah,
and I guess that makes sense, but I also don't understand how like these are very different instruments. All of that would be different anyway. I guess they're maybe playing two different pieces, but that doesn't make sense.
No, they were obviously playing the same piece.
They were playing the same piece, so I don't get it.
That's what, like, in a band-off, I guess, it's like, it's who do you hear over each other more, right? So, yeah, no, it was kind of odd. I mean, it was cool. I mean, in both scenes in this TV show version and the movie.
Look, they sound cool, but I just don't understand how you win.
You don't win.
The rules are not
but
set
it
up well.
It sounded great. And again, like, if I was the person watching this, he's all like, at the end, he's like, that was awesome. You guys have a
and it was
pretty
awesome.
Skilled school. Like, I don't know why you have this giant gate up, because they both sounded great, so why don't you just, like, take down the gate? And then walks off. And then the dean's like, take down the gate then, I guess. Because this random parent or whatever
Also, it looks like a prison.
It did look like a prison.
And is a fire hazard.
It was...
And is a fire hazard.
It was literally locked, too. It wasn't... Like, you cannot get... They show him locking the gate and unlocking the gate. It's
and
like,
locking it.
Yep.
It's like, you're in practice time. Lock the gate. Why? Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, I mean, like, how do you know one kid isn't gonna, like, you know, have his hot pot in his water cooler explode?
Look, how do you know that there's not just gonna be a random fire and then you just have,
fire.
like, 30 dead kids?
Yep.
Yeah. How do you explain the giant gate that's locked? Well, anyway.
That's why you can't lock them.
No, you can't. It was funny. Anyway, they move on to, like, we lost, now you have to hold up your end of the bargain, which then just leads to the ensemble, where it's, like, every like,
big
school.
Climax of this show is...
Yeah.
Climax.
It's like, there's a kid choir.
Asking the Western music kids politely, can you help us sneak in?
That's literally what
yes.
they won. That was the winning agreement, was literally just like, hey, help us get in and sneak on stage and help us, like, take over the sound booth to whatever. And, again, because I've worked helping out at, like, these types of things, this isn't something that you just, like, everyone just pull up your instrument and play. No, this is, like, something you prepare for, days before,
also,
to make sure
that this
sound checks work and stuff like that. Oh, it's televised. So you know, yeah. Like, this is a program that you plan for and set up and do stuff, but they're all like, nope, we're just gonna sneak in after they're done their piece and just, like, roll our instruments in, tune them, because, you know, they don't instantly have them. Yeah, whatever. Moving on.
Yep.
Kayla, why don't you explain?
The final performance.
This final performance. So, what ends up happening here is that the Western music kids finish their thing. They toss all of, like, their badges to the traditional music kids who use
like
them
to
sneak in. They have some of the classical music kids, forcibly, like, tie up the sound man, like, the light sound man. And
poor sound man.
They
did
nothing
his job.
wrong. He's literally just
He
there.
did nothing wrong either.
And so they have some of them just take control of the lights, and then they just have the lights man tied up in the corner. And so after they leave, they very quickly have the other classical music kids and them, like, move all their instruments onto the stage, because these are large instruments and you need the multiple people to do that. And then we get to this end performance, which is, it's very long. It starts off with...
It's like a good, like, solid 5 minutes.
So our old man security guard, who had let them practice in that extra room, starts off the performance and he gets to sing, which is really cute. I enjoyed that he was there.
He sings well all of a sudden, too.
And he sings, magically learned to sing.
And then each of the characters essentially gets, like, a solo segment. So the main girl and then the weeb girls and then the main boy all get their little solo segment with the each of their instruments.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start the actual song with like the rest of the performance, and for some reason 2 of the weeb girls are now playing the electric guitar.
Yep.
Very
ancient.
because
For some
we had
reason.
to have that. Also, the weeb cheering squad makes their second appearance here, and they just like show
They're
up
back.
and they walk down the aisleways. They still have the light sticks, and they're just like
So the light sticks
standing.
This is a crowd full of children, so
They're
Oh, yeah.
standing
can see
in the
nothing.
front row in front of all of the children with the light sticks, just like in the way. And then we have rip-off Hatsune Miku, who just like appears like halfway through the performance. Bootleg Hatsune Miku. And I'm like, I don't know how that's happening, but she's just like flying around the audience, like all of a
Again,
sudden.
screaming why ancient Chinese music is appealing.
Amazing.
and should be studied,
Rip-off
you know,
Hatsune Miku is exactly
with
what we
electric
needed
guitars and weebs.
here. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
This is the final performance of this show.
And they have like a compilation of
movie.
like their parents seeing them and being like, I approve now of my daughter because
I'm so proud
I'm
of
so
my
proud.
children.
he's talented. I just didn't realize. I just needed them to see him on TV.
Yep.
Yeah, whatever. Show up to your kids' practice, parents. That's my advice to you.
So,
Maybe you'll care about them more.
Dan's parenting advice, everyone.
This is just
20-something
this
single
episode
man who
is
has
just
no children.
Dan parenting advice. This is actually
You're
what this
welcome.
turned into.
Just
Mind you, in the show, it's the same thing, just without the weeb cheering squad and bootleg Hatsune Miku.
yeah, which
The same thing
again,
happens.
Makes more
I did
sense
like
that those
because
two
it
aren't
actually
there.
sounded like more. They were still electric guitars, granted,
Mhm.
but at least had way more of an ancient music feeling. The same thing goes for the hallway performance. All the instruments, they definitely made them sound like they normally would. Because I've listened to some ancient music before, just on YouTube and stuff. There's a lot of really good stuff. It's really, really, really relaxing. There are a lot in like just like people recording on like streets in China. They're just like, I'm just gonna perform, like street artists and stuff, and they're all really great. So this definitely sounded more traditional in the TV show rather than the movie, because in the movie they just tried to make it folk music is cool, but the only way to make it cool is by modernizing it, and I'm like, that defeats
And
the
so
whole
yes,
purpose of the
modernizing
story.
this Chinese movie.
My thing is, like,
we need
how
the
is
lead
the show
squad.
better at that when they literally have, like, they're, like, I found it far more interesting when they did the folk music mixed with, when they modernized it, they did it with that, with the award show. In that scene, I found that far more interesting, and it's a better mix as opposed to what they were trying to
Them
do
being
with everything
at an
else.
anime convention.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
weird. So yeah,
In weird cosplay, in weird non-denominational cosplay,
yeah,
wherein I think they couldn't literally dress them up in IP,
Yep.
pretty much.
but they were just like, I don't know, something.
Something.
You're something.
You're someone
Something
famous.
from something.
Yeah. And that's it. It pretty much sort of like, and then all of a sudden all the parents are like, wow, that was actually pretty cool. Folk music ain't so bad.
Yeah, and then they
And
don't shut
so-
down the traditional music department. And they get more students
Yeah.
and whatever.
They have an ending
Yeah.
scene of like, they see like, oh, look, a parent's dropping off their young kid to like,
And
with
the
a
young kid
traditional-
has like a traditional instrument.
Mhm.
Yeah, and they're
And
all like,
it's like, oh, the
"Ha,
next
job-"
generation's.
Yeah.
And
It's like the
then-
folk kids are all like smug and they're like, job done. We've saved folk music forever.
And main girl ends up with Simp Boy because that was just bound to happen.
Wow. And it's a very
that's what we
long
needed.
scene.
Yep.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
it's so long.
I like,
They're
genuinely
in Under
skipped
the
it because it was
Stars.
like I did not
Oh
care
my
at all.
I
really had-
actually closed out of it by accident, and I'm just like, came back,
Do
and I'm
I
like,
want to open it again?
do I need to open it again? And turns out
No.
I didn't, because it was literally the
shouldn't have.
logo 2 seconds after I accidentally quit. And I'm just like, are you serious? That's all I missed? I missed 2 seconds, and then the logo appears of them saying, Our Shining Days.
Yep.
And I'm just like, wow. Alright, well, I missed nothing there. Either way, and that's how it ends.
Also,
That's
yeah,
it.
it's
That's
a
the
very
end of this
interesting thing.
movie.
Was a movie. I want to talk for a second about our final note here, Kayla.
Yep.
Piano boy and violin girl should date.
They should.
That is the
Why were they not
relationship I
dating?
wanted from this
Like they
movie.
should have just been
They
dating.
should have been dating.
First chair.
Yeah.
First chair
and Piano Boy.
There's a character we never even mentioned. There's this girl who is kind of a bitch, but she's like first chair violin. And she is kind of snobby. She's kind of the quote-unquote antagonist, even though she doesn't
do anything.
Literally anything. But they focus on her facial expressions a lot.
They do. That's all she's there for.
Kind of, but even not really.
She
because
bullied the girl with the diary.
But that wasn't her. She comes in after. There's like 3 other girls bullying the girl with the diary, and then she comes in after and doesn't help the situation. But like doesn't actively bully anybody. She just
I thought she was one of those 3 girls. So
no, she wasn't.
So even less
like,
she's
less
also
of an
just
antagonist.
Yeah.
And like her and Violin Boy will just sometimes just sort of be like right next to each other, and just sort of like have like this look to each. Like at the final showcase, I think they look at each other while the things are performing. And I'm like, nah, you two seem to be compatible. Like my headcanon is that they are dating.
And that's why she was giving her such a hard time about, like, stop going after my man.
Why are you going after my man?
Yeah. You need to stop.
And I think that, and also, like, why he's so actively, like, please leave me alone, I have a girlfriend. Leave me and they're, like, keeping it on the down low because they're, like, both first chair. Mm-hmm. Like, they're like, nah, we kind of gotta focus on the instruments. Let's maybe keep this more casual, but, like, we are a thing.
Right.
And like that's the plot that I want to be happening in the background of this show.
Yep. Another thing I just sort of want to bring up, like, is like a sort of a thing on the overall movie, is that I can easily, because even just reading the description of it, you can tell that it's just like a Chinese propaganda movie for Chinese traditional music. And
yes, it is.
It's so confusing to me that this was not what it was because of the amount of, like, weird focus was put on, like, the Japanese culture in here. It's like,
and also,
you take that out, it's weird.
Like, they don't demonize Western music.
They don't.
Like, it's all, like, this could have been a propaganda film, but I think it also either failed or is a bad propaganda film.
It's also, this movie has won, like, several awards, and it's like, this is like a well-renowned movie. It has several awards, and I genuinely cannot understand why, because it's so weird and so confusing.
I mean, it was definitely entertaining, and I definitely say I'd recommend it to people because I do think the music is fun. But don't go in for plot.
The plot is not there.
The plot is almost non-existent.
Plot's not there.
I think you just need to watch this with friends.
I think it's a fun one.
I recommend it to people because it's funny. It's just like, this is so ridiculous,
like, me and
that
Kayla
you
had a great time watching it together.
We did.
Also, if you're gonna watch anything, watch the show. Don't watch the movie. Don't watch the show. The show is just a lot of random things.
This exact same plot, but just like long.
Based off what you told us of the show, like, I'm just like, I already seen this.
I mean, you do miss Best Boy, which is the actor. The actor is Best Boy. But also, it's fine. You can find the same character in a bunch of other shows. Right. It's fine.
Well, yeah. So...
overall, what did we think?
Overall...
It was a fun experience.
Recommend this.
It was a trip, and that's basically what I told you as I was halfway through the movie. I was like, this is odd, but I'm still here.
That's what we told you to watch it, because you're like, this is a life experience you just need to have. Like, you need to watch it.
Yeah.
We will be mentioning this. We will be making references to this movie forever.
Yes.
I think so.
That's just what's going to happen.
Yeah, it was... I didn't take it seriously, which is why I think I enjoyed it. And I did enjoy just, again, listening to music, because I do like classical music, both ancient Chinese and just Western classical. Like, I enjoy that, so that was fun. It was cool to see a bunch of snobby kids in a school as well, but...
that was the cool part?
It was, I mean, music school is cool. I've never been to music school, so I can't say that I've seen it before, but yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to look good here. Leave me alone. Like, I wouldn't say it was bad. I didn't say I did enjoy myself. By the end, I was fully invested, so...
I wouldn't say I was fully invested, but you know what? I enjoyed myself.
It was fun watching it. I enjoyed it. I don't know if I can really say it's good from like just like a movie standpoint, but I did have a fun time watching it.
It's not. I'm gonna go on a limb and say from a movie perspective, it is not.
It's a bad movie.
Because I don't know what the 3-act structure of this movie.
Oh, there wasn't.
There's absolutely none.
That was what I'm saying. There wasn't a 3. There was no, and even like motivations and all that didn't make sense. They had no backing to it. Side characters were interesting. Leads were not interesting. I don't know. Yeah, like I could see why a lot of people can like it. I don't think that there's something that will definitely, like, I see why people like it. That's definitely something I can see.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I mean, you've shown enough Chinese in like movies and talked about TV shows enough for me to realize there's a general theming to a lot of them, and I'm just like, aha, I get it. So I wasn't really, when I started this, I wasn't really too surprised by like a lot of directions it was going in, and I was like, I get it. It was cool. It was interesting. I didn't hate it, but as a movie from itself, it was kind of off. But yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say.
So thank you for coming on this journey with us of the movie Our Shining Days. It was a very interesting time. And if you are listening to us on YouTube, we are also on all of the major podcasting platforms. And if you're listening to us on one of them, we also have a YouTube channel where we post all of our episodes along with really fun clip videos and other compilations. We also have a Twitter at Slappin Kpop if you want to follow us to know when our episodes come out. And we also just post other random fun things there. And we have a K-pop collection Instagram that is pretty much the like collective collection account for all of us on the podcast. And we've been more active on that recently, so that's also been very fun. And this has been the next installment of our Asian Drama November, and we will be back to K-pop content in December. So if you're here for that, just hold out another couple of weeks. But thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye!
Bye!